Waiting for Gary Winston Brewer. It's waiting. Oh, there he is.
I just got it.
Hey, Gary.
Hello.
Here we are.
Let me make sure my
today?
phone doesn't fall over.
I'm going to adjust my camera. So, there we go. That is a little bit better. Oh, there we are.
Perfect.
So, I like this. I like being in an easy chair.
You look very comfortable.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in my studio. I'm with my dog, and with Gary, and with Nicole. And Aline is going to be joining us as well. Hi, Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole is actually, for those of you that are just coming on, Nicole's actually in the gallery, right, Nicole?
Right. So there's Gary's piece in the show, LA Stories, here on campus in Gainesville, Georgia.
In its new home.
In its new home, yes. So we are so lucky. This piece by Gary, and then the piece over here by Aline, which I can close up in a minute when we talk with her, are both now part of the Brenau University Permanent Art Collection. So that's extremely exciting, extremely exciting.
We're thrilled.
Yeah, this is really, I think this is great. It's what a interesting and unique opportunity for this show to run for almost a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. Really incredible. Well, and I'll show you since I'm here right now. So as I've been posting and telling folks, we've been doing COVID vaccinations in the space on campus. So you can see some of our tables set up here. And what's really exciting about that is we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people coming through in just the last few weeks in person to get their vaccinations and also to just look at this amazing artwork. So I've seen, right here. So I've seen the nurses and the healthcare workers and the people getting their vaccinations all stop and just look and take in the art. So it's really, really, really cool. It's a great experience.
I've read some recent statistics that by looking at art, when you get the vaccination, it works better.
I think so too.
The efficacy is greater.
100%. We're doing it right here at Brenau with LA Stories. So.
Yeah, well, this is like I said, what a interesting time, and I want to thank Nicole for a lot of her suggestions and her ingenuity and her kind of inventive thinking about like how we can really make the best of the situation. And I really think we have, and I know that like the artists in the show really appreciate it. I really appreciate it, So
Aline and I do. Aline and I do, because we had a show last year. The same thing happened at a college gallery, and it was never seen by anyone, and we had to go get the work. And so it was just so nice that this didn't have the same fate, that it was able to stay until this moment has come that people can now get out and see it.
Yeah, it's really nice. So we want to thank everybody at Brenau.
Well, thank you. We're so grateful to all of the artists and to you, Paul, for being flexible is the term we love to use these days. Being flexible and patient and resilient with us, and just working with us on all these crazy ideas like Instagram Lives and a virtual exhibit and all of these things. So I think we've gotten so many people to see it either in person or virtual that I'm really, really pleased with how this one has gone, because it's a really cool show.
Well, my slogan with everything is "Why not?" And that's my slogan at our house with our kids and with everything. People go like our kids will go, "Dad, can we go to Hawaii this summer?" And I'll go, I'm going to have to rethink my slogan.
Your why not slogan?
Yeah, I'm going to have to rethink that and say maybe. we'll think about it. But I try to make that as a slogan because for me, I'm always open to possibilities. And, whatever situation we have, we've got to make the most of it, right? Wherever we are, we've got to make the most of our situation. That's our choice, is to not do something, or we can do something. And I'm always up for doing something. So Damn it, it's a lot more fun.
It is.
And
It is.
I'm very fortunate because I've got a very tolerant wife who puts up with all of this.
Hi, Janice.
That's right, she says.
Hi, Janice.
So we always try to make the most of it. Let's talk about Gary's work. So Gary, can you give us a little bit? Tell us give us a little bit of background about yourself.
You mean in the big sweeping from the beginning of time, or the last?
Let's go from let's try to keep it brief, but from the beginning of time, your time.
Well, it's been interesting. This body of work that has emerged in the last really 5 years, I would say. My nature-based work began in 1999. Prior to that, I had been an abstract painter for about 15 years. And interestingly, painting is a really profound way of self-discovery and having deeper strains of memory, thought, ideas, and identity sort of express themselves in the work that emerges when you are delving as deeply as you can into discovery, self-discovery, and the invention of language, creating a language, a personal language. So when I began these paintings, I didn't really see a broader representation of myself. I was trying to find a way out of abstraction. I was trying to find a way that I could create a language that would carry with it sort of what I discovered through abstraction, but be a broader universe of meaning so more people could access my work. The abstraction for me was sort of a closed, smaller window, and I wanted a bigger window that was open. And I'm, I've always been deeply a lover of nature, hiking, backpacking, surfing, scuba diving. My life has really been involved in here in California, we have incredible access to a diverse range of ecosystems and stuff. As time proceeded and the evolution of my ideas sort of married themselves more deeply with the subject matter, initially when I first started painting lichen and other small
microorganisms,
small organisms, their forms weren't just like an aesthetically pleasing subject matter. Their forms really conveyed a sense of the tenacity of life, the persistence of life, the whatever happens to this world, if it gets covered in a mile-thick sheet of ice or it's struck by an asteroid, life keeps emerging, it evolves, it develops, it regroups. And there's something in that to me that's optimistic, that's like this determination, this why not? And
I like that.
So that was what struck me early on, was like, this is a representation of the history of life. This is a representation of the tenacity and the unending, ever becoming reality that we're a part of, and that the gratitude and the sort of wondrousness that here we are, these conscious beings, sense organs and memory and imagination. So it all sort of came together in epiphany early on with that. But as the work emerged, developed, grew, 5 years ago, I started using imaging of dark matter that I had seen sometime before. And when I started using the dark matter, all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is like this cosmology that's starting to identify itself with my own personal history. Because when I was a child, my father was a test pilot in early on in his career as a test pilot in California, in the desert, in Lancaster, along with other, Edwards Air Force bases out there. And then he became a part of the Apollo mission to put a man on the moon. So in my youth, I used to walk to the end of my street, my very early youth, and there was a desert. The street came to a dead end. And you stepped over the edge off the asphalt. You were in this tenacious, intense natural universe. When you step back on the sidewalk, you were like in civilization, this organized reality of human need. And even as a young kid, this sort of disparity between those two is very distinct. Wow. Lizards and snakes, scorpions, and, you know, cactus, and this incredible tenacity of the desert. And then, but with the dark matter, it kind of brought my father and my early life thinking about space travel. We used to go to the end of the street and watch the X-15 being taken up to skirt the edge of the atmosphere. So all of a sudden I had this sort of realization about 5 years ago, like, wow, this is sort of like my own personal history of being drawn into this history of time and life on Earth. So that's from the beginning.
You know, this is interesting too, because you talk about that pivotal moment, that transition between abstraction into representation, but your paintings, you know, they don't represent what we see with the naked eye. In fact, they remind me a lot of that film by Charles and Ray Eames, The Power of 10, in which the camera zooms out like at 10 stages away from the Earth, like out into the universe. So the first part of it is going out into the universe, you know, and we're getting farther and farther and farther out by the power of 10, farther out into the universe. And we're seeing all these, you know, black holes, we're seeing different solar systems, we're seeing all kinds of different things. And then all of a sudden the camera pans back, going into the opposite direction, into this picnic that this couple's having, into the food, into the earth, and into like these microorganisms. And to me, they get more and more abstract. So what we're seeing from your paintings is not what we're seeing with the naked eye, like the Power of 10 film. We're not seeing what we see with the naked eye, but we're seeing these things that appear very abstract to us, because they're things that we don't experience, you know, with our perceptions directly. These are all kind of like indirect perceptions. And it's kind of interesting because you were talking about that, you know, in terms of like walking out of, you know, at the end of your street is the desert, you know, and you get a completely different world when you get out into the desert or any aspect of nature. So that transition for you from abstraction into representation, it's like you haven't even gone to, it's not a vast difference.
No, it's very,
I mean, bridge, but you're
the funny thing was, and with abstract painting, because I sort of, you know, in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody was doing very minimal painting. You know, Martin and tons of people whose work I love, but I didn't love the absence of composition. I really wanted composition. I was trying to find a way. I was kind of going into an eccentric abstract vein and playing with different forms and trying to find a way to get compositional complexity. So what's really cool, I mean, my paintings now are like super complex. I mean, it's like complexity theory. You know, it's almost like, no, there's a term. What is that term? It's not complexity theory. It's another term. But anyway, you know, where complexity becomes, you know, systems theories and these things that with computers and the ability to deal with such complex problems. It's like in my paintings now, I have kind of arrived at what I always sought for in my earlier phase, where I was trying to find this richness and this composition that's really musical on one hand, but on the other hand, and it's lovely because many people who see my work, I'm really after like an oceanic swoon of life in this broad metaphoric sense that, you know, like a visual poem of our being enmeshed in this vast life system that extends out to planets and stars and solar systems and galaxies beyond our atmosphere. You know, it's all interacting and all complexly creating the possibility for life to exist. And here we are, existing.
And yet, I think the really wonderful thing about all this is, yet it's just a painting.
It is
it's just a painting, but the whole universe is in the painting. You know, I love the metaphoric qualities of this.
I think what it is language. And language is something that we were created to create. You know, I mean, human beings, the only way we survive is in our social, as a social group. And language and music and song and poetry and painting and sculpture and dance and all of these things create like this unity of a sense of community. And so each painting that you make or I make or that Aline makes, these are all contributions to this vast river that's flowed through time, that's connected to human consciousness, to allow us to know that we belong within a group together and can collectively do things together. Like creating this damn vaccine for the COVID-19 in like a year. Mind-blowing. How many minds collectively work together to try to find a solution, and did through sheer will and imagination. It's amazing. I mean, human beings can be sadly quite awful and happily quite unbelievably wonderful. And we like the wonderful ones.
Absolutely. You know, the one last question I wanna ask you, Gary.
Yeah.
And you know, I love your kind of poetic explanations of this as well, you know. But the thing I want to ask you about is your process, because a lot of people wonder about that. Like, you know, so Gary Brewer, what's your thought process in all this? Where do you draw your inspiration from? You know, like, you know, where do the painting's imagery come from? How are you coming up with all of this?
Right. Well, you know, I still spend as much time as nature as I can. We actually live right at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains here in Pasadena, which are, you know, 6,000 feet right out our window. We can look up to the top of Mount Wilson, and it's 5,100 feet. But, you know, tall mountains, and then they go up to 10,000 a little bit down.
No, Gary, it's 5,110 feet.
34, I think. But anyway, so in my hikes in nature, I'm constantly finding new subject matter. But it's always these gold formations that I photograph when I go to natural history museums that have been in Paris and New York and here in LA and San Francisco. Luckily, gold is always just behind a very shallow vitrine. You can always see it. I can get my camera and like take a bunch of pictures, because I want my own photos, in part because, you know, I shoot like 70 photos of like a damn orchid, because one of them will be exactly right. That's the funny thing too. Yeah. It's like with our cameras now, we can be anywhere. Like, oh shit, look at that. And you like take a bunch of pictures, you know. I mean, in these new pieces, I just used some lichen I shot 2 years ago in a hike in Ojai. That was so incredible. It was so tenaciously, beautifully, intensely, radiantly on this granite boulder on a hot sunny day. I thought, man, check that out. So I took a bunch of pictures of it, and it's been floating around on my phone. And then like the last paintings, I used it. So I collect imagery of the things that I'm drawn to. Generally all photographs of myself, but I take obviously not the dark matter, which was a NASA animation. But then, so all of these things are there, and I use them to create my compositions. But the way that it works is generally the image comes clearly in my mind, not with all the specific details, but in a very general way. Like this newest body of work. Let me see if I can flip my image. I actually see that little flip rotation thing. Let's see if it works. It works. So this is the new painting. This is my most recent painting.
Can you zoom in on it a little bit, Gary?
Sure. I just walked forward. It's amazing.
Wow. Hey, I'm liking that one.
Yeah.
Liking that one.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So this is the most
sometimes I have to repeat my jokes because people don't get them.
I got it the second, third, and fourth time. So anyway, this is the most recent oil on canvas I've completed. And this is for the upcoming show that Aline and I are doing, titled Entwined Roots, Symbiotic Relationships.
And where's that at, Gary?
That is at Wohnzimmer Gallery at 621 South Olive in downtown Los Angeles. And it was a show that we were going to have together. This is a recent watercolor. I'll continue speaking as I show these. That was a show we were going to have last year. They got canceled due to COVID. And but anyway, just to talk briefly about these. So, like, you know, I did this painting up here several years ago, and I thought to myself, like 10 years ago, and I thought to myself, wow, when the COVID thing showed up, I thought, that looks kind of like that painting I did, these COVID images, you know. Here's another new watercolor. And so those worlds became, there's one of them there. There's that beautiful lichen. See that black and white stuff? Yeah, cool. Shut that out in Ojai. But anyway, so with the COVID thing coming, I thought, well, I'm going to make some more of those worlds because it kind of looked like the COVID coronavirus thing. So that brought that back to mind. And then just briefly, here's another painting that will be in that show.
Awesome.
So when I see these in my mind's eye, they are general. Like when I thought of the spheres, that I do more of them. There's another one of them, the world. This is titled Birth of the World. You know, I see them and then I may sketch them out or not, usually just in a very swift sketch. But then, come on, there you go. But then, you know, then I compose the piece using Photoshop. So I have all my images, I use Photoshop, and I put it together in a general sense of the compositional vision that I had in my mind's eye. They're usually pretty close, you know, except for the details that I don't really know exactly what I'm going to use it. Then it's like sifting through all the material I have. Try this one, try that one, try that one, try that one. And they all fit together, but according to my vision, it's pretty clear. And it's kind of cool, man. They just pop into my mind. Yeah. I mean, I'm usually reflecting upon it. I mean, usually with each painting, I've either made a terrible mistake that I'm going to learn from, or I've had a wonderful journey that I've learned from. And either way, that from that point, the next painting emerges. And I just do one painting at a time until it's done. Yeah. I do multiple paintings. It's kind of time consuming and take a lot of willpower, so I don't want to like spread myself out. I just like get through it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the way that these have been developing over the years too. You know, they started off with a more monochromatic color palette, and you're developing and the, you know, the not only are the colors continuing to expand, your palette's expanding, but also your attention to the complexity and the details are also coming out a lot more in these two.
Complexity is what really, like, I early on.
And as a viewer, as a viewer to these, they become more interesting because of that. Well, you know, there's like, it's like rich with references and all kinds of things that are really interesting to me.
Thanks. The piece that Nicole, that's behind you, the Velocity of Perception, that was a series I did when I first got it started with these. I chose to work in blue because the dark matter was just such a sort of mind-blowing looking thing. I didn't want to like get lost in it with making a bunch of color choices that might go awry. So I reduced it to blue, and also I just thought blue was such a mysteriously beautiful color, an evocative color, a poetic color. But I knew it'd be a winner, and it's beautiful. Blue's, you know, blue's just a rich, beautiful color. So I did that for 2 years, I think, just the blue series. I made about 20 paintings or so in that reduced palette. And even the objects in the foreground tended toward blue, or like on the verge of blue. So as I moved out of that into this newer body of work, that's when I really started extending my color palette as well as the complexity. But thank you. No, I'm really thrilled with these. They're just like, it's this ineffable, I was just going to finish. It's this ineffable thing that as artists we're after. We can't say it in words. We can't see it. We can only find our way to it. But when you find your way to it, it's really cool.
You know,
it's like a great thing.
That's a really good note to finish on, Gary. Yeah. One of the things that because I teach painting, so I see so many paintings every day. My life is painting. I paint all day, and I teach students how to paint. And one of the things that I see and I can spot a mile away is when artists are engaged and enthusiastic and passionate in whatever they're painting. It could be the subject matter isn't relevant. It's their engagement, and it's that engagement that communicates to other people, you know, on so many levels. And that's what we really see in what I think are great paintings is that engagement, and that engagement hopefully also communicates to the viewer, and they become engaged in that. They see the enthusiasm, they see the passion in it, you know, and we all respond to it. So I see the engagement in your work, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And I know other people do too.
I appreciate that.
So now we'd like to speak.
Now we're going to go to my beautiful wife, Mare.
Your lovely wife.
Hang on a second. I'm going to carry this.
Aline.
For all those watching, we've decided to use the one phone for both of us, just to not bump into some complex.
You know, I don't think I've ever seen, Gary, the ceiling of your house quite the same as we're seeing it right now. Yeah.
Is it like that?
Yeah, I've gained in the last 3 seconds. I've gained an appreciation for your ceiling.
Yeah, it's early 40s. You know, kind of interesting thing. Okay, let's see if I can get.
It looks a lot newer than that. I would have guessed the 50s.
Yeah, I think it's the 40s.
There's Aline.
Hi.
Hi, Aline.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey,
Good to see you.
Hey, it's Aline.
Can you scoot back? Hang on a second.
No, this. You can just
Aline,
no, it'll fall out. And I think it's a spot.
I'm looking.
There.
You know, there's something beautiful and authentic about the amateur qualities of Instagram Live.
Folks, this is live. We have not edited this.
And it's real. Okay. It's live.
It's real.
And it's real. And I love that.
All right.
Right? This is three-dimensionality at its finest.
You could just adjust it as we're talking.
Hi, Aline.
I'm good. I've been
Aline.
watching silently on Instagram.
Well.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Gary, maybe you should just hold it.
So maybe while they're setting up, maybe Nicole can talk a little bit about Aline's work. One of the things that I can describe, well, like I said, as they're setting up, is Aline is an artist that works, she bridges the gap between working digitally and working traditionally. So even though these are digital prints, she's also painting on them. So they're kind of like hand-worked digital prints. And if I can describe them correctly, and Aline, please correct me here, is that these are prints, but she's scanning a lot of images, or scanning objects, scanning images, and they're heavily textured. And that's one of the things that I respond to when I see them, is the textural quality. They've got like a very, like I said, for me, they're very textual. And maybe for Aline, and Aline can go in and talk about these as well, you know, like where the source of your imagery comes from, you know, what inspires you, what's the source of the imagery. And there's also, I think, like Gary's, they tend to be, for me anyways, very poetic in that sense too. So maybe Aline, can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, you're pretty close on all of it, Paul. I kind of bordered the worlds of painting and drawing and photography, but I'm none of the above specifically. I don't photograph much. I do mostly scan and paint, and each image is a unique process. So it's a one of a kind, even if it's a small series of 3. Each one is unique because they're painted, or lately, as you're talking about, I've gotten much more materialistic. So I started to add physical objects to the final image, like pieces of mica or wings or lichen or minerals. So a vast amount from my personal library that I've been collecting for years. I'm a real collector of strange and interesting objects. So yeah.
Interesting. So what is your you know, maybe you can talk about some artists or that inspire you specifically, or you know, like your background in this, and maybe how did you come into digital imagery?
That's another one. But yes, I do come out of theater and performance in New York, and experimental film. And I can see a lot of the experimental film influence, and I'm slowly see that I'm returning to the flesh. I think my work is very physical and materialistic, but a lot of major influences, personal ones and impersonal ones. I was very close to Carolee Schneemann, a really wet East Coast performance artist who was very feminist and courageous and way ahead of her time. But yeah, you can also probably see that I come out of that Kiefer school of very materialistic, almost spiritual landscape. I'm very definitely interested in that kind of alchemical process, visceral work.
You know, I mean, I think when I see your work too, not a visual connection, but more of a, like I see almost a more spiritual connection between yourself and Kiki Smith.
Well, I am an old friend of Kiki's, and there's definitely a relationship there, although she's really defined by the body. I remember at one time she went out and got I forget the term for it, but she became like an emergency physician. It wasn't a physician, but able to work in the emergency, what do they call them? The wagons.
Paramedic?
Yeah, like a paramedic kind of.
Oh, wow.
You know, that was the beginning of that for her. And we were all like, wow, that's a real job. But she was really able to push that in her work. I think that I'm slowly returning to that source. And I was going to show eventually in this 15 minutes of fame a glimpse of some of the work that I'm going to show in Wonsheimer, in the show with Gary, which really definitely returns to the flesh, I should say. Gary, maybe you could get more comfortable.
I'm fine.
Okay.
You know, the
you
other thing too,
yeah,
that you know, that I'm kind of I feel is kind of like a subtext to your work too, is that you know, your early years were spent in New York, and I'm always kind of fascinated when we speak about that connection between I think of it as your developmental years, you know, in New York, and how that maybe shaped you, and you know, that was kind of like the early years of feminism. You know, maybe not the earliest, but maybe the teenage years of feminism. And I find that all kind of interesting, and how that weaves into your thought process and into your work about gender and gender identity, and how that's kind of shaping everything as well.
Yeah, I see that as an evolution for myself as well. And I am absolutely, undeniably a feminist, although, you know, it's controversial in some worlds. But I've returned to that in the sense of redefining notions of masculinity and femininity. And in this newest work, I am really trying to deal with that multiplicity of gender, or the potential for change, and acknowledging that. But it's an interactive kind of experience that I'm having. And I have taken the transformative quality of all these years of imagery that dealt with metamorphosis and change, and I'm trying to bring it back into the body.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good moment to show that. Can I show that? Can you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
My earbuds are dying, so I'm gonna have to switch while you guys are kind of showing this around.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna do it.
So we'll have the editors edit this out later on, you guys.
Yeah. We'll definitely edit it.
just like the makeup, just like our makeup artist. Right, you guys. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay, you're okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so you
just
can
telling,
actually
telling
see
my
like
makeup person.
Oh, okay. You can come back, Paul. But this is one of the latest images, and I can show you the physical two bodies that exist separately in transparency. But here, like, I'm trying to really combine the forms and redefine our notions of sexuality. What? Gary? Are you saying something?
This is returning to video.
Returning to video, which is really a big part of my background. But Gary, can you show this up here so they can see this?
And Aline, am I right in connecting the fact that your video work was also connected to your performance work that was before that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The video came out of the performance.
Right. It was really multimedia extravaganzas in downtown New York and abroad. But it definitely dealt with an erotic kind of sensibility about the flesh and the body from an early stage. Yeah. So I would say so. The last film I made ago, which got me a lot of wanted and unwanted attention, was called Saline Solution. And it really did deal with a late stage abortion. So I stuck my neck out and got in a lot of wet water, shall I say.
Well, that's a taboo subject.
That was the last video I made. Yeah. And soon after that, I got pregnant. So that was the end of my abortion phase of making work. Anyway, yeah. So I was going to just show maybe some of this work in process over here where you can actually see where I'm painting and adding objects and you know, because people look at my work and they go like, well, what is it? Is it a painting? Is it a photograph? Is it what is it? And so yeah, less and less defined, I think, where it's all mutating and ultimately possibly moving. But yeah, so I'm now really working with this mica, which is this wonderful metaphoric mineral for me. That's layers and layers of glass that I paint and add to the painting. So it's really given me a lot of freedom and liberty to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
these are big minerals. Yeah.
Yeah. So how large are these, Aline?
You know how these are 72, I think, 24 by 72, and they interface. They're on either side of a very big mica kind of bursting through the flesh. And that's like probably 90 inches wide. I don't know. It's a big wall. So we'll see.
It's a big wall.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yes, Paul?
We're losing your audio, Paul.
Oh, we're losing your audio, Paul.
See this beautiful.
Paul, can you hear me? Your voice isn't coming.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh.
Sorry?
Are we almost done?
We couldn't hear you there for a moment. You're back now.
I was going to briefly show, can you just hit the screen, Gary?
Okay, now you guys are out. Am I out?
You just...
We still hear you.
You're dipping in and out, Paul.
I'm coming in and out.
Your audio is.
Maybe you should charge your phone.
Okay.
I can hear you now, and I can hear Aline now.
Technology.
Okay. I'm going without doing this without. So
can you hear me now, Paul?
I can hear you now.
Oh, good. So I was just going to address briefly the piece that you have at Brenau as part of a series. Yeah. I had done in the Mojave Desert when we first moved here.
She has it on the screen.
What?
She has it.
Oh, you have it on the screen. Good. Well, I'll show a different one then. But I spent some time in the desert, which was a very new environment for me. And I did a show of desert-influenced imagery where, again, like I was really looking for this order and disorder in a universe I barely knew. And the Mojave really rang for me. So I was able to find these kind of, I call them psychic snapshots. Here's another one, Gary. Can you flip? Yeah. Where I combine the physical objects, scanning, and you get this kind of hyper-realistic sensibility. And then I use this material in almost all my work as I'm now using the mica. And it's actually, I don't know if you can see my finger, but kapok from the kapok ceiba tree of Los Angeles, which has these wonderful bursts of matter. That's become a wonderful metaphor for me of clouds and change and metamorphosis. So it's in all the work. It's in the work that you have there as well in Brenau, the kapok matter, I call it. But I have bags and bags of this seeds, really. Yeah, so I'm glad you have that piece. I'm really honored it's in the collection. It was really the beginning of a whole process for me of combining these charged objects and looking for the spirit matter of a place. So I love that you have it there. It's great.
Well, it's a great home.
Yeah.
And Brenau has a wonderful collection. I've heard it's the greatest public collection in the southeastern United States.
Wow.
Yeah, for a private institution.
For a private institution, it's wonderful. And Nicole is the keeper of this. She's the maintainer of it as the director. She maintains the collection, and she does a great job. And with all of the work, and I'm so happy to have been able to curate this show at Brenau, which is fantastic. Like I said, it's a fantastic place, and being able to work with such amazing artists like Aline and Gary, as well as so many other ones. So my dog's crying. He wants to leave. He wants to go outside.
It's been great.
He wants to go outside.
It's been so fun, and I love now that because Gary's piece and Aline's piece are now part of the collection, that we have this recording now that we get to keep to kind of add to our archive of these pieces in our collection, so we can really share sort of words from your mouth about your inspirations, about where these pieces came from. And I think, Aline, you talking about your roots in feminism and, experimental video, and these are things that, we're really excited about. We have some Kiki Smith in the collection, so that's really fun to hear that you have a connection. But just thank you to you and Gary both for being a part of the show, and, obviously for entrusting us with your wonderful works. We're so happy to give them a home here on the East Coast.
Well, we know they're in safe hands. So thank you. Thank you both of you for making such a great experience. I'd love to go and see the whole show and the collection. I won't get to see the show, I'm sure, but we will take a trip.
You just let us know, and we'll roll out the red carpet for you.
Okay. It's great talking with you, Nicole.
Yeah. I want to thank Nicole. Thank you, Aline. Thank you, Gary. And we're going to be back next week, Friday. Same time, same place.
Same time, same place. And we're going to be talking to Dion.
Fantastic. So that's Dion Johnson.
Dion Johnson. Yep. Same time, same place.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, you guys. You take care and have a great weekend.
And thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys.